Hey, Chopper here. It is Chop Shop time, brought to you by Laxratz, and I have got two old buddies with me today. They're not old, but the relationship is old. I got Tom Borgia, who's the head coach of the Redondo Union High School girls lacrosse program, and I have his highly esteemed JV coach, Jeff Emery, with me as well. I got to warn our viewers already, I've known these guys since we were all drunk and sitting in a sink in Manhattan Beach, so we may get a little bit ribald at times. But Tom, let me kick it to you first. You've had a pretty successful program for the last 10 years at Redondo Union High School. Is that safe to say?
That's more than safe to say, Drew. Put it this way, our JV girls, their record in the Bay League since we started is 68 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. That's pretty good. Okay. Our varsity, my first 11 years, we went to the LA County Finals 8 out of the 11 years, and we won it 5 times. I think Oak Park won 1, Agora won 2, and PV won 2. So yeah, we're on a pretty good run right now.
All right, so Chopper didn't do his homework there because I definitely undersold your program. And so Jeff, you're the architect of a number of those victories, right? So the program's 64-1, something like that. What's your record there as JV coach?
Well, I was going to say, I do not want to take credit for any of that, but last year was my first year and we went 6-0. So again, I didn't accumulate that 1 loss, but I was actually surprised that we did have 1 loss. Okay.
That was in 2010.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it was in 2010 was the JV loss?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. These girls are going to be spoiled.
I haven't lost. JV hasn't lost a game since 2011.
Wow. Wow.
And but Jeff forgot to say that in those 6 wins, he outscored the other teams by 77 goals. Yeah. And that was with playing the starters maybe half the time.
Yeah, I would say no starter played more than a half during that time.
And, that's in light of, given that it's a JV program, if you've got a top girl who is a freshman or sophomore, they're going up to varsity. So it's not like you're able to cull the 20 best underclass girls for your team, right, Jeff? I mean, you've got a highly motivated, skilled group, but some of your best players may be playing up on varsity.
Yes, Tom takes them pretty quick. As soon as we recognize that, they're gone in a hurry. So, yeah. which again, I look at my role as a JV coach is not to be undefeated. It's to make sure that I prepare them for varsity. So nobody's happier than me than when they get up to varsity.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, before we get to all these accolades, let's go back in time a little bit because you guys go way back. Tell me about each of your backgrounds and where you guys met and how you got started as the hot knife through butter of South Bay singledom.
I'll start because I am the oldest guy here. My background is I grew up in New York. Lacrosse was never a part of the growing up for me. My dad was the top ref in the NBA, and we went to all the Knick games we possibly could go to. My older brother played at Princeton with a couple of former NBA guys. My younger brother just finished his 40th year in the NBA. So I saw a stick for the first time. I played freshman football at Rutgers, and there's this little known guy by the name of John Danowski, who happens to coach Duke now in our U.S. national team, said, "Come on, Tom, we need some football guys to play lacrosse." I had no idea what it was. I loved it from the beginning. And, I was kind of disappointed to move to LA in 1979. Jeff and I moved out from New York, and there was no lacrosse locally then. I started, with the boys program when my son played in 2007.
So, Tom, you mentioned picking up a stick, and I've learned that is a cathartic moment. And I've known a lot of good athletes who, as soon as they felt that stick in the hands, was like me the first time I felt a hammer or a saw in my hand. I just was like, I don't get it, right? Maybe I didn't want to get it, but I do think that's a turning point. And you said when you first picked up a stick, you kind of felt like this was home.
Yeah, I picked up a long pole wooden stick to play defense, and I'm like, holy crap, they want me to catch with this? But I was just so into the energy of the game, the speed, the hitting. Half of my frat guys played lacrosse, and they looked at me like I was like a 6th grader learning how to play, like, oh my God, this guy is really into it kind of thing.
Well, and I'm not so sure they wanted you to catch with it as much as they wanted you to whack somebody with it back then playing long.
Yeah, I might have gotten a few penalties back then.
Yeah. And so, Jeff, your cathartic moment with lacrosse was much later. I mean, it's just in the last couple of years. how did you get started with coaching lacrosse, and how have you made it work?
Well, for me, there's a couple things. And Drew, one of the first times I ever saw lacrosse, a game being played, was your son going up and watching PV. And I took my younger son there, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember the boys in the stands calling your son Crowbar for separating kids from their stick. He was hitting people left and right, so it was fun, and my son just enjoyed it. But then Tom, I started going to watching his games, and there was one game, and I still recall it vividly, PV against Redondo, and Redondo came back from 7 goals at halftime. I was ready to leave the game. I was like, oh boy, this is just terrible. And they came back and won that game. And I equate it to Magic Johnson's hook shot in the NBA Finals, beating the Boston Celtics. The energy of that game, and I was like, this is incredible. And I just fell in love with it that day. And in addition to that, I watched 50 middle school girls storm the field after with their little Redondo sweatshirts on. And I said, how do I become part of this program? And thankfully, Tom asked me, hey, would I come over and help him out? And I haven't looked back. I just absolutely love it. So,
well, one of the things that I came to realize when I was talking to you guys before is your guys' relationship with the sport of lacrosse and with your team in many ways mirrors any person's relationship with any other person or any other group. And Jeff, tell us again, what was your message to, or your conversation with that girls team when you first started? I mean, you didn't know much, they didn't know much. How did you approach that?
Well, for me, it was those girls that had at least been exposed to lacrosse in middle school and knew the rules. I didn't even know the rules. I didn't know why they were stopping. And my first conversation with them is, look, we're going to learn together. I don't know anything. I've coached basketball, I've coached baseball, I've coached many other sports, but I've never coached lacrosse. And I said, we're going to learn together. And I think that my honesty with them, and I think it resonated with them, that I wasn't going to try to overpower them in any way, that I was there for them. So,
I just thought of it because each of us has 2 sons, right? So Jeff, I'm curious, had you ever coached a girls sport before Redondo?
I had never coached a girls sport. I don't have any daughters. I say this, I said it at the banquet last year, and I pretty much tell anybody, I coached boys for 10 years basketball over in El Segundo, and I loved it. And there's nothing against those boys. I've some great kids that I'm still friends with. But I tell the story, I said, if I left the boys alone for 10 minutes, somebody would be duct taped to the wall. The girls, on the other hand, I leave them alone for 10 minutes and they're running drills on their own. It's just, I'll never go back to coaching boys. It's a different breed. I love everything about it. So.
Well, we're going to find out a little bit more about some of those girls in just a second. But Tom, I want to give it back to you because kind of the same question, either intentionally or by chance, you have built a culture, created a culture at Redondo around girls lacrosse. And I'm just curious, since you weren't a lifer, I mean, you got into it in college and knew the sport. When you first moved to California, I think you told me nobody even knew what a stick was. I mean, tell us about that.
I remember going down to the beach with my stick. I was going to have a catch with, not Jeff, because he couldn't really catch, but a couple of people asking me if it was a butterfly net and had no clue. My younger son, Matt, I got him a stick when he was in middle school, but there was really no place to play. And his junior year, 2007, we started a program and he had played football. But, like Jeff said, I have 2 sons, coached them both for 10 years baseball, 10 years basketball, 8 years soccer. And people ask me, oh my God, how could you coach girls? I would never coach another boys team for the love of money or whatever. Yeah. The difference is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
My first boys practice, we had a lot of guys that didn't know what they were doing and 2 guys that did. And those guys were like, pick up the effing ball, Joey, you effing stuck. My first girls practice, the 3-star players, 5 minutes in, said, is it okay if I help Mary, Joni, and Susie with cradling? The atmosphere, it's just unbelievable. The vibe for these girls. I tell them I'm their crazy grandfather. I try to teach them life lessons as well as lacrosse lessons. And they roll their eyes when they see me on campus because if they're talking to a boy, I make them get 4 meters back like it was a foul in lacrosse. I got to tell you, we worked together in textiles. I put 32 years in and didn't know what I was going to be. I was the king of quote women's swimwear in the textile industry. And I was wondering, what am I going to be? And this quote second act has been a great part of my life, and I enjoy it so much. I look forward to every practice, every minute.
So you brought it up. I didn't. But I get to go there. You mentioned 32 years ago working in textiles. That's where you guys met each other. So take us back to, early 20s, mid 20s, Tom and Jeff. How did you guys meet? And how did you guys end up living together?
Jesus, Jeff, you want to take that one?
Well, Tom,
we
I
moved
think
out
you
here
would
around the
take that.
same time. Okay, we came out in September of '79 when Magic got here. And I'm watching a Laker game in January, and it's flashing, hey, guaranteed playoff tickets if you buy season tickets. I say, hey, Jeff, let's get some tickets. So we each bought 2 tickets, and we started giving them to our customers and said, please email our bosses. So, of course, the Lakers go all the way. Next thing we know, our bosses are saying, hey, maybe you guys better get season tickets, which turned into Senate seats, which turned into 28 years of Laker tickets. So we were in the same office. I was married. He had a hard time meeting girls. So when I got divorced, I moved down to 317 Longfellow. His brother had moved back to New Jersey, and he needed a wingman to help him out. So there I was.
So Jeff, I know you had a hard time meeting girls back then because I knew you back then. Was Tom sort of the reason you were able to start meeting girls and having dates?
Absolutely. He's the love broker. No question about it. He's the only reason.
So Tom, you made a mistake because you just gave the address of your guy's former abode. And if nobody got it, it's 317 Longfellow. That place is a shrine to young male singledom in the South Bay back in the good old days. But I want to know the circumstances when you actually moved in, Tom, because a room had to open up, right? And you had to be available because you were married up until then, right?
I was divorced, living by myself in a furnished apartment up in the valley. And Jeff's brother moved back to New York, and one of the other guys moved out. So I wanted the big room so I didn't have to share a filthy bathroom with my partner over there. And I moved in, and then we would have parties with all of the lugheads like you from Live Oak Park, and none of you guys knew girls. So Jeff and I invited every girl we knew from all our customers, and I happened to meet the young lady that worked for one of his customers, and we've been married 35 years now. So
oh, I did not know that that's how you met Liz. That's incredible.
Yeah. So Liz worked. I knew Liz's mom really well. She was in purchasing, and so I called on this company. It was commercial uniform, and then Liz would come and work there, and they introduced me to it, and to some degree they were saying, would you be interested in going out with Liz? I said no, but I've got a guy that I want you to meet. And I remember we went to a Laker game. Wasn't that the first date?
Yeah. So we go to a Laker game. It's Jeff, Pat McCabe, myself, and Liz. So I buy the first round, Jeff the second, Pat the third. Liz says she's got to go to the bathroom. She comes back with 4 beers. I'm like, dang, Jeff, this might be something special here. She's actually bought us beers.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
So I was gonna say to that, and I remember she was just the sweetest, most unbelievable person, and just when she did that, Tom and I looked like, holy cow, she just bought beers for all of us. Yeah. That's a keeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And the back half of my whole relationship theme was gonna be, what do you invest in a relationship, and what do you bring to the party? And so, Jeff, I'm going to want to double back on a couple of more of those stories, but I'll throw my own in about my wife because I met her at a time when I was going crazy with you nuts. And I think back then it was hard for any girl to break through the armor, the force field we'd created around ourselves with, beers and all that. But I remember, she and I were dating, and I did kind of feel like she was special. And one day I took her to the beach with me with a couple of my other buddies, and she ends up running fly patterns in a bikini, and I'm throwing the Nerf football 40 yards downfield, and she's running under it and catching it. And I thought, man, this girl's as much fun as my brother, and I could spend the rest of my life with her. And that's what I ended up doing. So it's funny that I think for any woman to work their way through the force field we created, they had to really be a keeper. So.
Yeah, you know what happened? My life didn't change much because now it was me, Jeff, and Chris, and Liz went out. So Liz was like the wingman, and she would send girls over to Jeff and Chris. So my life was pretty much the same, other than she was kind of one of the guys hanging out with us. It was great.
Yeah. So you
Not
guys,
the mystery pork chops, though.
you guys, so you're talking about those Laker seats, but those were not the best seats in the world to watch a Laker game. The living room at Longfellow was the best place to watch. And I remember Lakers Celtics in like 85, 87, those playoff series. We'd be in there after we'd play ball in the morning. We'd be in your guys' living room in the afternoon drinking beer. And, you know, you talk about some epic confrontations. And Jeff, Carlisle wasn't coaching the Celtics then, but you know Rick Carlisle, and you had a chance to get close to the Celtics when he was coaching and playing there, right?
No, he was on the Celtics during that time, and when Magic made his hook shot, he was on the bench. He didn't play much at that point, but he played 3 years with the Celtics, a year with the Nets, and a year with the Knicks.
And of course, now a very successful coach with the Mavericks, right? So,
yes.
And you know him from school back east, or playing ball back east, or?
He tells his players, I gave him a beer when I was in college and he was in high school, his very first beer. And that's where we met. We'd play basketball in the gym during the summer. And a guy, Rick, and another guy named Hal Cohen, who actually was the nation's leading scorer for 2 years in a row in high school and ended up playing 4 years at Syracuse.
Gotcha.
So
well, I'll bring us forward now to the current coaching regimen you guys had. I know you guys said neither of you guys is an X's and O's coach. And Tom, I'll start with you. What do you bring to the mix if you're not bringing great plays and great, deep strategies to your teams? What are you bringing?
Well, Drew, it kind of goes back to the first year. I was assistant coach on boys for 2 years, and the JV coach, his son was moving up, and they said, hey, why don't you do the JV boys? I'm like, I really don't want to. The girls went through like 3 coaches the first year. They were 2-17 or 3-15. And when I first started coaching, we started 15-0, and the girls were really nervous going over the coast. I said, hey, girls, is there anybody who really had a goal of being undefeated? And a lot of the girls, their goal was, we just wanted someone to care about us. We just wanted to be able to be proud to say we're on girls lacrosse, because everyone made fun of them at the high school. It's not a real sport. You stink. You can't win. So what I brought to them, I love you guys. I was like, Jeff, I really don't know what's going on. I had another woman coach with me that played at the University of New Hampshire, and I was the cheerleader and just kind of bringing energy to them. I believed in them, and they were really into it, man. After what they went through the first 2 years, they just wanted to be somebody, and we were right away.
Yeah. And Jeff, I know you'd said it wasn't just a matter of caring about the girls, it was letting them know that you care about them. And apparently that's really the chemistry you've brought to that JV team, right?
Yeah, and I really do think that is certainly on the high school level, and no one's, when I was coaching boys basketball, a lot of the guys, everybody wanted to get a Division I scholarship. A lot of times these girls just don't want to be out there and love the camaraderie. And so you've got to adjust to a little bit of that. You're going to have some. I've got some that certainly want to be Division I athletes, and I love that. But I just think they enjoy being out there and being there with their friends. And so I try to make it fun all the time for them and make it so they're feeling loved, I guess, and that they're getting not just lacrosse instruction, but I generally send them something every day about life. Mm-hmm. Something from John Wooden, Mike Krzyzewski, Tony Robbins, whoever it is, just some little thing to keep in mind, positive about the day that really translates to life, as opposed to, we're only worried about sports. We're only worrying about sports. I think one of the reasons I've always loved sports so much is because it's really mirrors what life's about. You work hard, you're successful, things that you develop relationships, you be on time, all those things are going to help you as you get older. And so I think our job as coaches is really not to make them great lacrosse players, but to really make them great people.
Yeah. In fact, there's a saying, I'm not going to get it right, but it's something like that, some people remember what you say, some people remember what you do. Everybody remembers how you make them feel. And so that ultimately is how you get into a relationship, whether it's with players or interpersonally. Do you guys have any favorite stories, not about the Manhattan Beach days, but about any of your teams, any of your players, any of the things that happened that might fit in here.
I'll start. We're playing Chaminade in 2017. Okay, we're at Costa. They spanked us at home. They had this girl, Kate Mackel, who's now playing at Elon, who scored 7 goals against us the first game. So it's the finals of LA County. We got to stop Kate Mackel. I put my fastest defender on her. She got 1 shot. We hammered them. We beat them by like 9 or 10. My star sophomore goes for 5 goals and 4 assists, but she also happens to be a brainiac. Okay, so 5, 6, 8 parents. Oh my God, where's Emma going to play in college? Where's Emma going to play? She doesn't want to play in college. What? I'm like, look, she wants to be a doctor. She's got bigger things than lacrosse ahead of her. Could she play Division I? I think so. She's the greatest player I ever had. 2-time All-American. Ali Schaefer, 2-time All-American. How come she's not playing? She's going to be a dentist. She's in medical school. She's in Tulane. They don't have time for a Division I sport when you want to follow those careers. And that game was unbelievable. The game against PV, we had middle school practice scheduled for 7 o'clock. The PV game went to 7:25, so that's why all the girls were around. And I literally still have the video of my speech to the girls because one of the moms took it on top of the thing. So it's been a great ride.
I'm sure everybody watching would love to see a copy of that video, so I'll get with you offline and see if we can grab it. I'm serious. I mean, I'm sure people would love to see that. Jeff, what about you? Favorite stories, favorite players, favorite games, anything that sticks out?
Well, one that sticks out was last year we were playing in the Rose Bowl tournament, the JV team, and we had a young girl, unfortunately, get a concussion. And she came to the sideline, I mean, tears streaming down. She got wiped out. I mean, like an NFL hit. A girl, and it was, a very dirty play. And our girl went down. She came over to the sideline. I mean, tears streaming down there. And I said, I won't say her name. I said, are you okay? And she goes, I'm fine. I'm fine. As her eyes are going this way and that way. And I go, no, you're not fine. Where are your parents? No, coach, I'm fine. I want to go back in. I want to go back in. And I get her parents over. I said, she needs to go to the hospital, unfortunately. And a couple of days later, I went over to her house. She ended up having a very severe concussion and unfortunately missed the rest of the season because COVID came along. But she sent me a text after I dropped off some candy over to her house. She met her parents and just wanted to say, I just was thinking about you and the team was thinking about you and we wanted to let you know that we missed you. She sent me a text, Drew, and I think about talking about it now, and it makes me want to cry, how it made me feel. I was trying to do something nice for her, and in turn, I got it tenfold back. And it just invariably, and I'll never forget that girl as long as I live. She is so special to me, and she's on our varsity now. And I watch her all the time because of the way that she made me feel. And I was just trying to make her feel. And again, I got it back tenfold. Yeah. So that's the one that kind of sticks with me.
That's awesome. I mean, that's why we coach, right? I mean, people thank us for coaching their kids and you're like, hey, I'm the one that's really benefiting here by getting a chance to do it.
100%. And Tom and I talk about it all the time about, we tell these girls there's no place we would rather be. And they think that we're goofing around with them. And the reality is 100%, this is where we want to be. And we love every bit of it. And again, going back to the boys versus girls, they all appreciate it. It's remarkable to me.
Yeah. So, we'll get out of here in a couple minutes. Anything I've forgotten to cover, any stories you're dying to tell that people would want to hear? Tom, anything else that we can touch on?
Somewhat along Jeff's line, I have a girl, and I'll mention her name, Addie Bass. She's playing at Coast Guard now, and I read it at her senior banquet. It's she's got an English teacher that it's mandatory. Write a letter to some teacher or coach so you can thank them. So the letter starts, my teacher is making me write this to somebody to thank you. So it gets a big laugh, and then all it really talks about. And this girl, I would go to Paris Middle School and do clinics to recruit kids to play lacrosse. And she said, I don't know what I would do without you. The fact that I found lacrosse, which was the most important thing in my 4 years in high school and in my life, I wouldn't have found that without you, Borgia. And stuff like that. Guess what? I still have that letter. And I have a lot of the thank you notes that they say. But you have to remember, Drew, Jeff and I aren't young, okay? And I coach 51% as a coach and 49% like a parent. And part of our problem is girls like Layla, who Jeff loves, who got to, I'm fine. No, you're not fine. We really have to protect them from themselves. I have a girl who pulled her hamstring yesterday. She shows up today. She wants to practice. I'm like, you can't just like, yeah. They're really great kids, but we know better, guys. We know better, girls. We're looking out for you, but it's been a lot of fun. The best thing about lacrosse is it is the one sport that I am so much better than Jeff. It's not even funny.
Drew, it is really bad. I don't let the girls see me with a stick. I have no credibility. I'd have to do a free throw contest or something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's rare many times when somebody reaches the level of proficiency in a sport like you have with basketball, that they're willing to go do something where they're the worst or where they don't know anything. And I think that's a real credit to you because, you don't need to be the best player out there. You're just trying to do right by those girls.
Well, thank you. It's again, Tom and I, when we had to get shut down with COVID again, and we started practicing a little bit, and then we had to shut down. We had about a month and a half where we couldn't practice. I didn't know what to do with myself. I mean, it's such a joy going over there every day for me.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. It's been a joy. And I can tell you, everybody, these girls are in great hands with you two guys, not just because they're learning lacrosse, but I know you guys are really looking out for them and really taking care of them. And it's great that the success has followed. So congratulations to both you guys.
Thank
you.
Well,
and I would just say that it's a tribute to Tom. I just walked in, those girls just adore him. I can just tell you that right now.
Well, and I know Tom knows he's lucky to have you, even though you said that. So you guys are great.
I lost all my coaches, and one year I had to coach both teams by myself. So I was pretty much begging Jeff, come on, Jeff. I don't know lacrosse. Comes to one practice. Boy, this is a lot like basketball. I think I can do this. The girls love him. He's their biggest cheerleader. For any of our viewers, if you go to a Redondo girls game, get there for the JV game, and most importantly, after the games, get these two guys out for a beer and some stories because they will keep you on the edge of your seat. All right, I want to thank Laxratz for bringing this to you, but this will be the end of a Chop Shop for today. This is Chopper saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.